I think this, Vipana, is it from the Srimad Bhagavatam?
Yeah, Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 19th. And I'll put on the screen at the same time.
11th canto.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, chapter 19, text 20 to 24. Mhm.
Can you have some lights?
19, what is it, 1920 to 24?
19, 20, 24.
Here we go. Shadamrita Kathayam Me Shashvanmat Anukirtanam Parinishta Cha Pujayam Stutibi Stavanam Mama. So because there's so many verses, we'll just repeat this one and then I'll read the others later so that we can also repeat. So we'll say it 3 times and then we can let everybody else try. Shadamrita Katham Yame Shashvan Mad Anukirtanam Parinishta Cha Pujayam Stutibi Stavanam Mama Shadamrita Kathayam Me Shashvan Mad Anukirtanam Parinishta Cha Pujayam Stutibi Stavanam Mama. Responsibility.
Shraddhamrita Kathayam Me Shashvat Mad Anukirtanam Parinishta Cha Pujayam Sutibhi Stavanam Mama.
Anybody else?
Shadamrita Kathayam Me Shashvan Madan Kirtanam Parinishta Cha Pujayam Stutibi Savanam Mama.
Anybody else want to give it a try? It's a good time to try to learn this verse doing this. Somebody else? What about yourself? Here you go.
Praveen, you open up.
Shraddhamrita Kadayam Me Shashvanmat Anukirtanam Parinishta Cha Pujayam Stutibihi Stavanam Mama.
Open up.
Amrita Kathayam Me Sasvanmat Anukirtanam Parinishta Cha Pujayam Sutibhi Bhavanam Mama.
Stutihi Savanam Mama.
Okay, so oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Bruno,
One second.
are you gonna say?
Yeah.
Shadhammata kathayam me Shashwan madanu kirtanam Parinishta cha pujayam Stutibhi stavanam mama
You show me that you were trying.
श्रद्धामृता कथायां मे शाश्वन्मद अनुकीर्तनम् परिनिष्ठा च पूजयाम स्तुतिभिः स्तवानां मम
Okay. So actually the next verse is very important because Prabhupada used to quote this verse a lot. So I'll just say it quickly. Adara paricharyayam. So, no, we're just going to say this through now because there's so many verses. Adara paricharyayam sarvagir abhivandanam mad bhakta puja yadika. This is the important part of this verse, which Srila Prabhupada quotes in many places, where Krishna is actually saying that worship of my devotee is higher than me. So if you can try to write it down or remember this verse, very important. Sarva bhutisha man mati mad artish shwanga chesta cha vachasa mad guneranam mayarpanam cha manasa sarva kama vivarjanam Madartar ta parityago, bogasya cha sukasya cha, ishtam datam tam jaktam, madarpam yad vratam tapa, evam dharme manushanam, udavatma nivedanam, mayi sanjayate bhakti, punyorto sya vashishyati. So we'll read the translation now. So here Krishna is enumerating spiritual knowledge, and this is a very important verse because it enumerates like how one should engage one's consciousness. Firm faith in the blissful narrations of my pastimes, constant chanting of my glories, unwavering attachment to ceremonial worship of me, praising me through beautiful hymns, great respect for my devotional service, offering obeisances with the entire body, performing first-class worship of my devotees. This is the important part. Consciousness of me in all living entities, offering of ordinary bodily activities in my devotional service, use of words to describe my qualities, offering the minds of me, rejection of all material desires, giving up wealth for my devotional service, renouncing material sense gratification and happiness, and performing all desirable activities such as charitable, sacrifice, chanting, vows, and austerities for the purpose of achieving me. These constitute actual religious principles by which those human beings who have actually surrendered themselves to me automatically develop love for me. What other purpose or goal could remain for my devotee? Purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Speaking of mic.
Oh, sure. So this purport is after Srila Prabhupada left, so the purport would be by a group of devotees who translated using Sridhar Swami's and other commentaries. The words Mad Bhakta Puja Vyadika are significant in this verse. Avyadika indicates superior quality. The Lord is extremely satisfied with those who offer worship to His pure devotees, and He rewards them accordingly. Because of the Lord's generous appraisal of His pure devotees, Worship of the pure devotees is described as superior to worship of the Lord himself. The words Mad Arteshwanga Chesta state that ordinary bodily activities such as brushing the teeth, taking bath, eating, etc., should all be offered to the Supreme Lord as devotional service. The words Vachasa Madguneranam indicate that whether one speaks in ordinary crude language or learned poetic eloquence, one should describe the glories of the personality of Godhead. The words Mad Arter Tar Parityaga indicate that one should spend one's money for festivals glorifying the personality of Godhead, such as Rath Yatra, Janmashtami, and Gaur Purnima. Also, one is herein instructed to spend money to assist the mission of one's spiritual master and other Vaishnavas. Wealth that cannot be used properly in the Lord's service and is thus an impediment to one's clear consciousness should be given up entirely. The word bogasya refers to sense gratification, headed by sex enjoyment, and sukha, such as excessive family attachment. The words datam hutam indicate that one should offer to brahmanas and Vaishnavas first-class foods cooked in ghee. One should offer the vibration swaha to Lord Vishnu in an authorized sacrificial fire along with grains and ghee. The word japtam indicates that one should constantly chant the holy names of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada. So there are very many instructions here, and for the materialist, these instructions are very bitter. You know, give up your wealth. All your activities should be for praising Krishna, and you know, basically, it's a very bitter pill for the materialists because the whole conception is that they are the body. This is my body. I should hold on to it as long as possible, and I should make my life here permanent. So an intelligent person realizes right away that the senses cannot be satisfied. Can anybody say that they have satisfied the senses right now? Can anybody put up the hand that I'm fully satisfied? You never read in the paper that such and such millionaire became so fully satisfied that he's just sitting in a corner now. He doesn't need anything, right? So it's not possible because the senses are insatiable. They're not just insatiable, but the more you engage in sensual enjoyment or sense gratification, they're not satisfied. They're just like a bad boss. If you do some extra work for your boss, he would probably give you maybe a bonus, or he would say some kind words to you. But that's not what the senses do. Does anybody know what the senses do when you engage them more and more? What do they do?
It's like pouring tea on a fire.
It's like this very wealthy man. He was once asked, "What is your philosophy in life?" And he said, "I can sum up my philosophy in one word. That's more." Right? So the senses are like that. No matter how much you work for them, they're never going to let you retire and say, "Okay, you've done enough." Right? That's not possible. So understanding that our senses will never give us enjoyment, and an intelligent person will then try to find out, well, who am I? If I'm not this body, who am I? And how will I find happiness? Devotees have to find happiness. It's not that we don't look for happiness, right? So if you look at the Vedic knowledge, how many of you have read all the Vedas? Anybody here? Probably not. It's hundreds and thousands of verses, thank you. There's 4 Vedas, there's 108 Upanishads, then there's 18 Puranas, right? Then you have the Itihasas like Mahabharata, Ramayana, the Brahmanas. There's so many of the Shrutis. So it's very difficult to read all of these. But what the sages did in the old days, they were very intelligent. they compressed all Vedic knowledge into Vedanta Sutra. So Vedanta Sutra is like a blockchain. Like a blockchain is just a whole lot of hashes, right? And it's compressed knowledge. So the Vedanta Sutra is only 555 sutras. And in fact, in traditional gurukuls, the young boys from the age of 5 to 7, they would memorize all of these different sutras, like Vedanta Sutra. And in the Vedanta Sutra, Prabhupada quotes, Atato Brahma Jignasa. Now that you've come into this human form of life, you should try to understand and ask questions. This is the most important thing. Ask questions. Brahma Jignasa. Questions into Brahman. Who are we? Spiritual questions. Then Janma Yasya Yataha. That's the next sutra. It's the next blockchain sutra that the sages left. What does that mean? The absolute truth is that from whom everything comes. Right? So, Atato Brahma Jignasa Janma Yasya Yataha Shastra Yonitvat. That actually all of the Vedas have said this. So without going to all of the Vedas, you should just know, take it on my authority, the sages say, Shastra Yonitvat. So in this way, Vedanta Sutra is a systematic compression of all Vedic knowledge. And then it says, so Shastra Yonitvat Tantu Samanvayat Brahma Ikshati Ananda Maya Vyasat. What does it mean? The nature of the living entities is that they're looking for happiness. Ananda Maya Vyasat. Right? So it's right there in the first 10 verses of Vedanta Sutra. What we should do, how we should do it, who we should accept as authority, and that we shouldn't give up looking for happiness. Now, who here can tell me what is the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra? Does anybody know? The natural commentary. So the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the commentary on all the compression of Vedic knowledge. So when we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, these words are explaining everything in one book. Of course, not a very small book, but compared to all the Vedas, you can get all the knowledge that you need in this one book. Because it's the natural commentary of all Vedic knowledge. So this is the important part that we should understand right away, is that the Srimad Bhagavatam will give us that knowledge by which we can find happiness. Right? So we'll see, like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, for one, yomam pashati sarvatra. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to him, and nor is he ever lost to me. How many of you have heard this verse? Yomam pashati sarvatra. So, a devotee, he sees Krishna in everything. Why? Because Krishna, we are also part of Krishna. We're Jivatma, right? He is Paramatma. So the same potential which is there in Paramatma, to a small degree, is also there in Jivatma, right? So by remembering Krishna, the Jivatma, which is like an ember of fire, begins to be fired up by the Paramatma and the association of the body. So that is how happiness comes, right? Happiness, Ananda Maya Vyasa, is not something that can come through your senses. It comes through association of devotees, sadhu sangha, sarva shastra koi. All, sarva means all. Sarva shastra koi, all of the shastras, the Vedic literatures, say that by association of a sadhu, sadhu sangha, sarva shastra koi, lava matra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoy. Even for 1/11 of the second, if you associate with a sadhu, sarva shastra koi, sarva siddhi hoy, which means all perfections of life will be bestowed upon you, right? So sometimes we think, oh, this path of devotional service is very hard. because we have to give up. When we read these verses, some people, the blood drains out of their body and they think, no. Just like when Bhaktisiddhanta sent some of his disciples to England in the 1930s, what happened is the Lord Zeppelin met the devotees. They had a beautiful banquet in a British garden with all their friends and come and see all these Indian Vaishnavas. And then when they explained, well, you have to give up meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, and gambling, they said, absolutely not. Never do that. What a ridiculous religion. So this is the terror that they get by the idea that they have to give up this kind of agitation of the senses. So the good thing is that we're very fortunate in as much as Srila Prabhupada came at a very auspicious time. It's auspicious for us because we're born just a few years after Prabhupada. Okay, and that. So, and it's auspicious for this particular Kali Yuga. Because, as you know, there are 4 Yuga cycles, which means Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. And then, in one life of Manu, the father of mankind, our name, man, comes from Manu. There are 72 such Yuga cycles, very long time. And in this day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus. And only on the 7th Manu, each one of those Manus has, 72 Yuga cycles. On the 7th Manu, so if one day is 14 Manus, 7 Manus is like midday of Brahma. At that time, Lord Chaitanya comes in the Kali Yuga. Other than that, he doesn't come. Right, so we're very fortunate. And when he comes, then Srila Prabhupada comes. And Prabhupada gives this free ticket. Practically, if you follow this, if you read Srimad Bhagavatam and chant Hare Krishna, then your endless cycle of material suffering will come to an end. And you'll be delivered to the spiritual world. So why is that important? Because as you get older, you'll see that time starts to go a lot faster. Because what happens is you become used to everything, you start eliminating more and more data. And weeks turn into months, turn into years, and by the time you're 70, you think, boom, what was that? My whole life is gone. And then your friends start dying, your loved ones start dying, you become invalid, and it's a very cruel situation. Whereas when we take to Krishna consciousness, we understand that our consciousness is the most important thing. If you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Srila Prabhupada came to America, he translated the first canto in 3 volumes. And he came to America. So he was sitting in Thompson Square Park all alone, chanting on his cartels. And he was all alone. And Prabhupada's eyes was closed. And one man came up to him and tapped him on the shoulder and said, Swamiji, what kind of consciousness do you get by this chanting? So Prabhupada thought about it, and then he said, Krishna consciousness. So that is how the movement got its name. If you read in the first canto, those volumes, the words Krishna consciousness is not there. Prabhupada hadn't assembled it yet, right? But Krishna inspired him to have this particular name. So being conscious of Krishna, Yo mam pashyati sarvatra, one should see Krishna everywhere. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to him, and nor is he ever lost to me. So does it mean that we're just looking for Krishna, or is Krishna reciprocating? Krishna is reciprocating. Just like sometimes you see when a child is a toddler, the mother will play hide and seek. So the mother will hide and the child will try to find the mother. So sometimes the mother may hide behind the curtain. And the child is looking and looking and can't find the mother. So what does the mother do? She shakes the curtain a little. So Krishna does that too. Sometimes something will happen. You'll bump into a devotee or something amazing, right? So there's all these things which are embedded in this world for those who have developed the eyes to see Krishna. This is there. We have to just see it. Just like the flies, they don't look at beautiful flower with honey. No, they look at trash. But the bees, they go to the honey by going into the flower. They're looking for flowers. So when you develop those eyes, non-critical eyes, that are looking for Krishna in a focused way, then only can you become fully satisfied. In this regard, there is a story from South India of a man who was very devoted, and he just lived in the garden of the temple, and he just did gardening. Like Dwaipian was telling me, one lady, she's just doing gardening today.
Laura.
Laura.
That's
Yes.
my friend.
Is that you?
My
As a
friend.
friend.
Your friend. Okay. So just as Laura is just doing gardening, so this person, he was just gardening. He liked to make the flowers for the Lord, and then he would sew garlands. So one day, some of the society girls, who were very beautiful, were coming out of the temple, and one of the girls said, you know, I'm the most beautiful. Her name was Chintamani. And the other girl said, yes, you may be, but you can never ever attract Namalwar. He's only attracted by the Lord. So Namalwar was the one that was doing the flowers. So she said, that's impossible. So she went strutting up to Namalwar, who was busy picking flowers and putting them into his little basket so he could go and make garlands. And she stood in front of him in a very seductive pose. And he went like this, and he looked all over. He said, oh, no flowers. And he walked away. So in this way, you know, when a devotee is fixed on Krishna, he doesn't become deviated because he's not looking for that. You get what you look for. If you're looking for these things, you'll find them. So it is a long journey, but through the association of devotees, we can make it more enjoyable. Enjoyable in a spiritual way. It's not that we give up enjoyment. We have to find ways in which we can remember Krishna, like this verse says, through many, many different activities. So now, according to our mandate, we shall open up the floor for discussion. Is that correct, Dwaipian?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have half an hour of discussion wherein you can discuss, ask questions, maybe give suggestions if you have any realizations. And I'm sure that we have a lot of devotees here with realizations. And so let's see who would like to ask. Yeah, go ahead.
You use the word natural commentary when describing the Srimad Bhagavatam in relation to the Vedanta Sutra. What exactly does that mean? What is a natural commentary?
So just remember that the Vedanta Sutra and the Srimad Bhagavatam are prime texts. That means they were written by Vyasadeva, right? So, in other words, there is a difference between a commentary and a natural commentary. A natural commentary is if I write a book and then I go and make a commentary on that book. So Vyasadeva wrote a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So he wrote, so the Vedas were all written, then they were compressed. And then he was feeling dissatisfied, and when Narada Muni came there, and he was saying, I've done all of this, but I feel dissatisfied. And Narada Muni said, yes, because you haven't described in detail the beautiful pastimes of the Lord. And that's when Srila Vyasadeva wrote the commentary on Vedanta Sutra, which is known as the Amala Purana, or the Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Any other comments? Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the topics was worshiping the devotees. So what does worshiping like pure devotees look like? Is it like, how is it different from like worshiping the Supreme Lord?
Okay, that's a very good question. So, so Krishna his devotees are very dear to him. And they're so dear to him that he So the devotees of Krishna are so dear to him that if we worship, in a sense, is, you know, it's a word that has a lot of latitude. So feeding the devotees, worshiping them, you know, these kind of things, it's all kind of involved in that. But just like a rich man who has everything, let's say, who's the richest man now? Let's say Elon Musk. Now, you can't do anything to get his attention. You could give him a car, it wouldn't impress him. He's got lots of cars, probably better than the one you can give him. And then, you know, but if somehow or other you go to the same park as his son goes, and one day you give him some candy, or your child is a very good friend of his, and Elon Musk's child is always talking about your child, and it goes on and on. Eventually, he will want to have something to do with you, right? So that is, so it's really about understanding the connection. Krishna's devotees are very connected to Krishna. In fact, there's a story that when Krishna was leaving this world, Mother Ganga came, and Krishna was sitting under a banyan tree, and he was about to leave this world. And Mother Ganga came, and she was saying that, my dear Lord, I'm so worried now that you're leaving. How will the living entities be saved and liberated? And Krishna said that for 5,000 years, they will bathe in your waters. They will bathe in your waters and become free. Then he said, after 5,000 years, my devotees will appear and travel around the world. And wherever they go, that will become places of pilgrimage. And he says that they will distribute the holy name and read Srimad Bhagavatam and eat only my prasad. And whoever sees them or even touches them will become freed from material miseries. And he says even Mother Bhumi will be so happy when their feet touch the ground. So this is how important the devotees are to Krishna. Now it so happens that if you do the calculation, so the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra was 3,104 years before Christ. So if you take Krishna's prediction of 5,000 years, you'll find out you come to 1896 when Srila Prabhupada was. So these things are not by some coincidence. Krishna is predicting that this great personality will come. So, but also very important is we surrender and we worship the Guru. So Guru is important. So when Krishna speaks about his devotee, and when you talk about worship, that is also pertaining to the Guru. So nowadays some people say, well, we don't need gurus because nobody's ever going to be on par with Srila Prabhupada. Right? Some people say that. And other people say, yes, we can have gurus, but they are Ritvik gurus. They're still gurus, but they're Ritviks. And other people say, no, I think I'll be the guru. Right? So this guru issue has been, it's been there for thousands of years. And guru just means teacher, right? So a person who surrenders to somebody who is teaching them about Krishna, that relationship is guru and disciple. Whether one is a Ritvik, whether one doesn't believe in even having Ritvik gurus, or whether one has got a guru, Guru is important. Why is it important? Because Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam. Krishna says, I established the parampara. So who are we to destroy it? Right? In the second chapter, Krishna says, surrender unto me, render service, and inquire submissively. How can you inquire submissively to somebody that's not there? So guru is necessary. If you don't accept a guru, it's the same as I teach you how to fly a plane. So now you're expert. And then just before you get in the plane, I say to you, don't listen to anybody else, just use the autopilot. So what will happen? You'll just crash. Because you have to listen to air traffic controller. Because he's going to divert you around bad traffic. He's going to tell you when to land, when not to land. So the guru, he will protect the initial intention of Krishna's words in the books. So there's something called distantiation. Okay? This is an academic term. If an author writes a book and then he dies, let's say he's disappeared now, his words are distanced from him. Think of a boat that is no longer tied to the harbor. It just starts floating. So this is called distantiation. Okay? And then what happens is, once the person has left, his words may have some power for some time, but then language changes and people start interpreting, right? This is called semantic autonomy. The boat is in the water, but there's nobody piloting it. It's just there. And anybody can come and divert it, right? So there's distantiation, semantic autonomy, and then there is the person who comes and they procure that and misinterpret it. So in order to offset this, in the Kali Yuga and in previous yugas, Krishna establishes the parampara, right? So, and it's because specifically the written word can be misinterpreted, right? So through distantiation or semantic distantiation and this system of perverting knowledge. Even if you look at Socrates, he didn't want his words to be written down when he gave lectures. He said people will misinterpret them later. So this is a problem with that. So the guru is important, however you want to see him in your own way. So worship of the guru, how to worship, you asked how to worship the devotees, is to please them. That's all. It's just a matter of pleasing, like whatever pleases the devotees, that pleases the guru, that's important. Does anybody else have some realizations about this question?
I don't know if I have a realization, but I don't know if I'm having a realization, but can we say that, like for example, worshiping Srila Prabhupada is an example of how worshiping a pure devotee, something that pleases Krishna, because we do Guru Puja every day. So worshiping, so we do the same art and so forth, of incense and lamp and so forth. And this is a good example of what Krishna is talking about, worshiping. When he talks about worshiping my pure devotee, there's no question Srila Prabhupada isn't a pure devotee.
Sure.
And also gurus and so forth.
Well, Krishna doesn't say pure devotee. Yes, this is the topmost example, that we worship Srila Prabhupada. But how to worship, that's important. Just like if I am a wife, and my husband is working hard every day, and then the husband comes home, but I didn't cook anything, and I didn't clean the house. But I'm sitting on the sofa, and it's sitting like a pretzel, and I'm chanting my husband's name, Johnny, 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 Johnny. So he'll be very pleased. Oh, he's chanting my name. Where's my dinner? Oh, I was so busy chanting your name. Why is the house made? I was busy. So lip service is one thing. So now, how do we worship Srila Prabhupada? This is a good question that you brought up. Srila Prabhupada's given us instructions on what makes him happy. Chanting 16 rounds a day makes him happy. Distributing books. Following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mandate. What is his mandate? Kiba Vipra Kibi Nyasi Shudra Kenenoy Ye Krishna Tattva Veti Say Guru Hoy. That whether Kiba Vipra, whether you're a Brahmin, Kiba Nyasi or a sannyasi, Shudra Kenenoy or even a Sudra, right? If you know the science of Krishna, then you become the Guru. You teach others, right? So this is so important that everybody needs it. Now it may be a little embarrassing to go to somebody in your work or whatever and say, listen, I really think it would be good for you to read this book. So if you can't do that, take them some Mahaprasad. I remember I used to sell oil paintings to build our temple in South Africa. In those days, we'd make $100,000 a month selling oil paintings, art. And they were all made in Hong Kong. And we used to sell them as, beautiful pictures for the house. They weren't expensive, like $300 or something. And I would get a lot of people who wouldn't want to buy the paintings. And then I would tell them, oh, by the way, I made this sweet. It's a special sweet that I made, and I want you to taste it. Then I run to the car, and I bring my little lunchbox with Mahaprasad, and I give it to them. And then they would eat it, and it's, oh, so nice. I think I'll take those 3 paintings. so Krishna would change their heart. Prasadam is actually Krishna, so it's potent. You'll see people that refuse to take prasad, or even may vomit, is because they have so many sinful activities built into them. So, how we worship Srila Prabhupada is important. And how we please him is important, is by trying to bring more people to Krishna consciousness, by ourselves really seriously trying to give up the endless burning of ourselves in the fire of sense gratification mentioned here. You know, even an old man who's dying in a hospital, you can see when a beautiful nurse works past, his eyes are tracking her. Oh, so beautiful. And the nurse is thinking, oh, he's just like my grandfather. And she's being very sweet to him, and he's misinterpreting. So this is how the living entity can very quickly take another birth in this material world, right?
Thank you.
Through this endless, unstopping desire to exploit. When we turn our face from Krishna, it's described in the, if you read in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, or in Prema Vilas. In Prema Vilas, Jagannatha Pandit says that the living entity, when he turns his face from Krishna, he sees Maya. Now, living entity is superior energy, and Maya is inferior energy. So he sees the inferior energy, says, oh, I can exploit. Let me enjoy. And that is how we become entangled here. So, it's a very dangerous situation for us. So these principles should be taken by the heart, not just taken to get initiation or taken to be accepted. If you want to enjoy in this material world, there are Krishna conscious ways to do that. There's prasadam, there's the marriage, program of marriage. There is, you can make money and build beautiful temples. So there's many ways you can do that. Any other comments or questions?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have one question. You got a good example about the bees and the flies. And naturally, we are human beings supposed to be having the most highest intelligence. So it's kind of obvious. The bees and flies, they only go to things they would like, trash or honey.
Yeah.
As human beings, we should also have a higher goal. Going for the goal, but we sometimes get stuck in the trash also. So why is that? How can we remind ourselves, help ourselves to be focused like the bees are focused?
No, that's an excellent question. That's a question which Arjuna asked Krishna. That, my dear Krishna, why is it that the mind makes a fool out of the living entity? Dambo darp abhimanascha. So the mind is balabhadrada. It has taken a vow of being stronger than you. Can you imagine? So it's a very good question. Never ever think that you've got to the point where you are now free from that fly eyes, right? Because if you read in the verse at the end of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it's the second last verse. It says, Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudra paha pravishanti yadva. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean alone can attain peace in this world. What does it mean? It means even sadhus have desires. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter. That means just like a river is perpetually entering into the ocean, the person does not act on it. So the mind has a phase. What is the mind? Thinking, feeling, willing, and acting. So as soon as thinking comes, cut it off. Because when thinking and then feeling, oh, somebody's on a diet, then they think, oh, I've been eating less for 2 weeks. Maybe I should buy a nice cream bun, right? So thinking about it, and then you start feeling it and tasting it. It's gonna have some, jelly in it and cream, and then you're willing to do something, and then you go to the store and you buy the cream bun in a little paper bag, and then you hide from your coworkers in the stairwell because you don't want to see them, and then you eat that cream bun, and your mind convinces you to do it, and then after you eat it, you go sit down, and your mind says, "You disgusting pig. You just broke your fast." So the same crazy mind that convinced you to do something you really don't want to do is now on your case, right? So thinking, feeling, willing, and acting. As soon as it comes to thinking, stop it. There's so many verses in Bhagavad Gita, like there's the sequence of verses that maybe you've all heard. It goes like this. Jayato vishayan pumsa, sangateshu bhajayate, sangat sanjayate kama. Kama krodha bhajayate, krodha bhavati sammoha, sammoha smriti vibrama, smriti brahmshad buddhina, sho buddhina sho vinashati. So, what does that mean? It means by contemplating the objects of the senses, attachment arises. When attachment comes and is frustrated, then comes anger. When there's anger, then what happens is you lose your intelligence and your memory, and then you again go into the deep well of material life. So it's a good question, Dwaipian. The answer is be vigilant, don't trust your mind, and when it comes to thinking, feeling, willing, and acting, just stop at thinking. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, go ahead. We still got 10 minutes.
Prabhu, so you said worshipping pure devotee as guru, and also then, for example, when we think of Hanumanji, he is the purest devotee of Ram Bhagwan. So worshipping him and offering as an offering to Krishna, then the Lord will value that more than worship. Then this is the part we.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
generally speaking, like in India, we have there's one Brahma Kund, and they worship Brahma there because it's very difficult to worship Brahma, right? So if we worship Hanuman, we have to understand that who Hanuman is, right? We have to understand what his relationship is with Lord Ram, and we have to understand, how to serve properly. Like, these are Leela avatars that, and yuga avatars, that different forms of the Lord that come for different purposes. So, like Murari Gupta, he could not give up the worship of Lord Ram, right? So, that is considered acceptable. There's nothing wrong with it. If one becomes sort of misunderstands the situation and thinks that Hanuman is God, then because Hanuman opens up his chest and he has Sita Ram there, right? So we have to understand that who Hanuman is and what Hanuman would want you to do, right? So what he would want you to do. What he would want you to do is that his Lord has appeared only 500 years ago in the form of Lord Chaitanya. He's Krishna himself. And he has come to save all these living entities. So if Hanuman was here, he would be doing the hard work of book distribution and convincing those who are not convinced. So not that we become indifferent to the point where we make offenses, right? Shouldn't be making offenses. Just like a lot of people, they're very attached to worshipping Lord Shiva. But Lord Shiva himself, if you go to Kailash, he is chanting on beats. So does anybody know whose name Lord Shiva chants?
Ram.
Exactly. So Lord Shiva is worshipping Lord Ram. That's his Ishta Devata, right? So just like some people, they worship Ganesh, right? But Ganesh, where does he get his power to take away material obstructions? Exactly. He gets that from Lord Nrsingadev. So if we think that Ganesh is God, then we've misunderstood Vedic knowledge. Any other questions or comments? This is discussion, so anybody can speak.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah.
You quoted that verse very nicely, saying that irrespective of one's status, whether Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, if he knows the science of Krishna, he can become Guru. I recall chapter 18, verse 55, which says, Bhaktya Mamam Janati. It is safe to say that for any one of such classes of people to learn and know the science of Krishna, he must take to devotional service. Is it safe to say that? Because this verse is quoting, only by devotional service one can enter into the mystery of my understanding, is what Krishna is saying.
Yes. So your question is?
Is that for one to learn the science of Krishna, he must take to devotional service.
Oh yes. Yeah, that's a good, very good. Just like there's many academics, they may know more even than us about Gaudiya Vaishnavism. They're Westerners. They can even speak Bengali and Hindi. But they have not one iota of devotion. They will see everything in a mundane way. So, knowing Krishna is taking to devotional service. So it's a very good point. It's not just by book knowledge. It's really by, if there's a fire in this room, if I just say, fire, get out, everybody understands. But if I sit there and I say, well, fire is an element which is, it goes from, wood. Where does wood come from? It comes from the sun, right? Through photosynthesis, it stores the energy in the wood, and then you can ignite that, and you get fire. And you're going to sit here and listen to me? No, because there's a fire in here. So devotional service has to be activated. It has to be. It's not just some book knowledge. There's lots of scholars that enjoy studying this, and they may get some benefit. That's true, but the real benefit is, and once you know how potent this is, if you have any compassion, you will want to give it to others. So preaching should not be some kind of a difficult thing for a devotee to do, because Krishna says in the Chatu Shloki of Bhagavad Gita, the 4 potent verses of Bhagavad Gita, Katayantascha mamicham tushanticha ramanticha, that my devotees, they get unlimited happiness, tushanti and ramanticha, from talking about me. Just like if you have, I remember when I was young, my sister, when she was about 16, she fell in love with a boy, and she couldn't stop talking about it. Day in and day out. Looking at pictures, writing letters, in those days no internet, and always talking, getting on the phone, speaking to a friend, always about the boy, right? So that's what happens when you are completely absorbed, then you can't think of anything else. So we pray that we become like that, and we hope that everybody else also becomes like that. But this path is very easy, but the most dangerous thing on this path, which is even more dangerous than falling down, what is it? Does anybody can think of something? Very good. Yeah, I think everybody got that right away. So Vaishnava Aparad means that even though we're not perfect, we start to become very expert at looking at the imperfections of others. Right? Just like if you ever deal with drug addicts and alcoholics, people say, oh, they've burned half their brain up. The reality is, yes, they have destroyed a lot of their brain, but they're very expert. They keep a little checklist of all the faults of the people around them. And when you criticize them, they'll go in a tirade about all your faults. You'd be so shocked how expert they are. So this is how we become, because maybe we are not following, right? So Prabhupada used to say, a thief thinks the whole world is a thief. So when you see somebody criticizing, you must realize that many of the faults that they're talking about, they have them. And if they don't have them, when you criticize others, you acquire their bad nature. And when you glorify others, you get their good nature. So, you know, and then to some degree, when you criticize somebody, they become released a little bit of that bad nature. So criticizing somebody is the worst thing because it destroys your bhakti lata. So that's a very important thing to always remember. The path is very beautiful, it's very nice, but we can destroy it. Now, another quick thing is that I wanted to speak about Sangha, because Sangha is important. Together, you come together once in a while, but just as you, in your homes, you may have some deities or you may do devotional service, it's also important to work as a community in devotional service. So community is very important. So try to figure out how to connect more with the devotees around you and to learn how to work together. Just like if you go to Jaipur, they have lots of semi-precious stones, right? So they get these stones from all over India. And you can go there, they've got these big, huge tumblers. And they take all these rough stones, they look really horrible, and they throw them in the tumbler, and it goes round and round and round and round and round and round. A couple of days, 3-4 days a week. And when they stop tumbling them, all of those sharp edges are gone, and there's these very beautiful, smooth stones. So when we interact with each other, sometimes we chip off these little rough edges, right? And it helps us in our devotional service, and it gives us an opportunity to be humble. And so sometimes devotees become withdrawn because they think, oh, they're going to criticize me, I don't have a perfect this or that. But working together as a community has many benefits, right? So think about that as well, because it'll also protect your Bhakti Lata beach. So, any last questions? I think we're out of time.
May I ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
So you said Vedas combined to Vedanta Sutras. As far as I understand, sutras means statements which are concise and condensed statements.
Correct.
So Vedas are summarized to sutras.
Yeah.
And then you said Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on all Vedic knowledge. So I'm not able to connect all these three. They're all about Vedas.
Okay, good question. So basically, you have the 4 Vedas, 108 Upanishads, and then you have the Puranas, and you have all of the other. So when Vyasadeva was putting this together, and this you can read about, he felt dissatisfied. So he created Vedanta Sutra, which is the compression of all knowledge. It's a blockchain, okay? So if you think about it, how the blockchain is, it's a distributed hash chain, right? It's summarized knowledge, right? So the Gurukuls would study this knowledge, and then when they get older, they would study the Vedas, and then that would become the key. But the good thing about it is, you couldn't change the knowledge because it was all recorded in the blockchain. It's a distributed blockchain. So it can't be, like all over India, they have the same Vedanta Sutra. So somebody couldn't just make up things because it was committed to memory. Now, Vyasadeva became dissatisfied because it did not go into the glories of the Lord enough. Because Vedanta Sutra is philosophical to a large degree. So he wrote, as a commentary to Vedanta, he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? Just like if you read Shariraka Bhasya, which is Shankaracharya's commentary on Vedanta Sutra, he gives a completely different meaning. And the reason he gives that meaning is because Buddhism has taken over the world. And he has to bring people back to the Vedas. Right? So Lord Shiva appears in Kali Yuga as Shankaracharya. Right? This is mentioned in Shiva Purana. And he misleads people through his commentary. And then Baladev Vijayabhushan came and he gave the Govinda Bhasya, which is the Vaishnava commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So, and that was written after Shankaracharya. So Vedanta Sutra is sort of the compressed Vedic knowledge. Just like in Windows they have WinZip. So you compress everything, right? So it's the same kind of thing. But how to explain that was already there in the, Amala Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is described how Narada Muni encourages Vyasadeva to write that, and then he writes, and then he feels fully satisfied. That's why it's called the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge.
Is it okay if I summarize?
Yeah.
So Vedas are the basic foundation, it's the entire foundation, and then sutras are the concise versions of them, and then Srimad Bhagavatam or the commentary is explanation of these sutras.
Okay.
Am I right?
So you've got the four Vedas, which if you read the four Vedas, three of them are to do with yajna. That's why does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita, one who is Trivedi? Why does he say that? Right? Because only three of the Vedas talk about yajna. The fourth Veda talks about household activities and so many things. So Vedas themselves are it's knowledge that you apply in a previous yuga, right? Where fire sacrifices were very important. Then the actual philosophy of Vedic culture is encapsulated in the 108 Upanishads, of which Isha Upanishad is, I would say, the most important. Okay? Then from there you get 18 Puranas, 6 in Sattvagun, 6 in Tamagun, and 6 in Rajagun. That is why people in Rajagun, they worship Brahma. People in Tamagun, they worship Lord Shiva, and people in Sattvagun, they worship Lord Vishnu. So these 666 makes up our 18 Puranas. And transcendental to all of this is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Srila Prabhupada translated the Isha Upanishad from the Upanishads. He translated Srimad Bhagavatam from the Puranas and Bhagavad Gita from the Itihasas. So he gave us all knowledge. There was nothing missing. And then on top of that, he gave us Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is the topmost. So that's kind of, yeah.
Anyone else who didn't ask a question yet? Before we go, just checking with you. Anyone else with a chance?
Questions are important, right? Atato brahmajenasa. Now that you're human beings, I want to hear questions from you. So if you don't have any question, Think of one.
Um,
It can be anything. Yes, go ahead.
I'll try. So in the text that we read, one of the last things that it talked about is how just all of these actions that were described in the verse, all those actions are the ultimate like purpose and goal of the devotee. So how do you essentially like starting off, you can like say, okay, this, you read this, you see like, okay, this is the goal, this is, how do you genuinely like believe that, and how do you make that like your primary goal whenever you are starting off, and like how do you work to that platform of making it your primary goal?
That's a very good question. And actually the verse is quite frightening for people who are materialistic. So it can be, depending on how much you are attached, the verse can be quite daunting, because it is a full surrender verse, right? So the best way to do that is, let's say you're good at playing the flute. Play the flute for the devotees. If you're good at cooking, cook for the devotees. Don't try to artificially give up anything, because when you do that, usually it goes from tyaga to boga. Tyaga means renunciation and boga means enjoyment. So try to get a taste. Once having attained that higher taste, then you become more and more addicted to expanding that. So the best way to do that is, like I said, try to please the devotees through ways that you know you can. That could be serving prasadam. It could be, donating, cooking, cleaning, things that you feel that are things you want to do, right? Now, when somebody comes and asks you to do something, right? We're chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is a prayer. My dear Lord Krishna, please engage me in your service. And then the temple president says, can you clean up the kitchen? And it's like, well, I've actually got an appointment now, I've got to go. I'm not saying that's you, obviously it's not you, but so that we're asking for service, and the most difficult thing for anybody is to be told what to do, or to be, if somebody interrupts you, it's even worse. Like you're driving a car and somebody cuts you off. Anger, guns come out, firing guns, crazy, right? So they don't want to be interrupted and they don't want to be told what to do. So it's very difficult to be a temple president or somebody, because you have to start asking people to do things, and that's what people don't like. So try to develop, when you're chanting, the desire to do these things without being asked. Anything that you're good at. If you're doing things that you're good at, then you'll become satisfied. But it's a good question, especially for all of us, in all states of Krishna consciousness. Anybody else want to say something about that? We done? Are we finished?
Yeah. Well, thank you once again, Gauranga, for this wonderful session. We all can give him a round of applause. So very rarely get a chance to hear from him, but as much time we get, we'll ask